Recognize the Lady Senator, Isalean Phillip.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. I rise this morning to make my contribution to this debate on the bill, the Appropriation 2023 Bill 2022, before this Honorable House. Thank you very much for the recognition. Madam Speaker, as Junior Minister with direct responsibility for the Ministries of Social Development and Gender Affairs, as well as the newly established Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities, for my presentation today, I will focus on the achievements, goals, and plans that are related to these areas, and also my intention is to describe and just highlight how these plans and our goals actually fit into the overall vision of the 2023 budget presentation that was made by our Honorable Prime Minister and member for number 8. Madam Speaker, to begin, allow me to draw our attention back to the theme of the 2023 budget estimates. Like my fellow member opposite, the Honorable Member for number 10, is it? For number 10, I also really like the theme for this budget. I think it's a very strong theme, and it focuses on, transformation as a sustainable small island state, towards our transformation as a sustainable small island state. Now, Madam Speaker, what does this really mean? We say in all these words, what does this really mean? And so when I think about, our thrust towards a sustainable island state, I think that means, we're talking about a St. Kitts-Nevis that is ultimately self-sufficient, a St. Kitts-Nevis that is resilient, a St. Kitts-Nevis where our people, our environment, our economy, and our resources all stand the test of time. You see, Madam Speaker, I really consider a sustainable small island state as a manifestation of who we are as a people. That's core to our identity as a people. How we have the saying that they say we small but we taller. I think that's what a sustainable small island state exemplifies and signifies. And that's really what we're working to live up to. We're really working to maintain our core identity of who we are, and this is what we are moving towards as a federation in terms of being true to who we are as a people that are strong, self-sufficient, resilient. Now, the real question is really, well, how will we get there? And that's really what we're here debating throughout these presentations. How are we really going to achieve becoming a sustainable small island state? And it's clearly laid out. I think our Honorable Prime Minister did a very excellent job in his presentation in telling us exactly how we're going to get there. And so I'm happy to contribute and give some more details as to how we all contribute to this vision. And so the vision for our sustainability is initially captured in the key pillars that are outlined in our budget address. So if we recall, the budget would have highlighted and addressed 7 key foundational pillars. These pillars are very important because in order for us to stand the test of time, Madam Speaker, we really need to accept the lessons of the COVID-19 pandemic and strategize around COVID-19 recovery, which is one of the pillars, of course. We also have food security, achieving food security, which is one of the pillars, and we would have heard from Honorable Member for St. Kitts 4 about the plans for food security. And I believe we can all say that we have confidence that we are going in the right direction when it comes to food security. We also need to be energy efficient. That's another pillar. Pillar number 3, energy efficiency. And I know we will hear a lot from our member for St. Kitts 3 about the plans for energy, because we already heard a little bit about the renewable energy mix that is coming. We also need to be economically diverse. A few members opposite would have talked about the need for us to move away from our dependence on CBI. And of course, as an administration, we know this. And so that is why economic diversity is one of our key pillars. We also need to have thriving industries. So we want industries that are different, that are also diversified, and we want to fuel that. We're going to fuel that with innovation, with the creative economy. So we have thriving industries, the creative economy, also as an additional 2 pillars. And of course, Madam Speaker, the final pillar that is mentioned, that is listed, is the strong mechanisms needed for social protection, Madam Speaker. And social protection, I want to say, although it's the last pillar, it is by no means the least. Because you see, Madam Speaker, social protection is cross-cutting. It is vitally important to any thrust for sustainability and development, because social protection is about creating the necessary social safety nets to ensure that all people live well and live with dignity. And we need that. Regardless of whatever the goal, the direction, the thrust, we always need to ensure that people live well and live with dignity. And so, to ensure that our health, that our welfare, and our well-being are all provided for, social protection, of course, is a key pillar to our thrust towards a sustainable small island state. By the end of this, you're going to remember those words, because that's the chorus today. Okay? So social protection, again, is really about ensuring that our means and our needs for survival and empowerment are protected, especially when we experience shocks to our economy and our environment. For example, we would have gone through the experience of the COVID-19 pandemic, and throughout that experience, we would have had to ramp up our social protection initiatives to make sure that our vulnerable, the elderly, those who are shut in, those who are poor, received extra social welfare and social assistance support. So that is what we want to make sure that our people have through social protection. Now, Madam Speaker, I don't want to have to belabor the point, but the reality is, again, that social protection is vital to our thrust to development and sustainability. And fortunately, for the citizens and residents of St. Kitts-Nevis, social protection has been prioritized. Social protection is really the foundational mandate of the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs. The day-to-day function of the ministry is primarily to provide social protection services. That is literally what we do. And for the past 22 years, since the ministry was founded and established as part of a government branch, we have been doing just that. And so, we provide a slew of services. For those who may not know, the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs provides social assistance services such as food voucher programs. We provide school uniform assistance. We provide medical assistance so that individuals, children, adults can travel overseas, because we know health is expensive. Health is expensive, and so we provide medical assistance. We also provide support to non-governmental agencies that also contribute to the social assistance ecosystem. So we would provide funding and subventions to our children's home, of course. We care very much about our children. We provide support to our shelter services. We also deal with programming and provide social assistance support in the form of income supplements. So, I think we all are familiar with the PAP program. That is really a social welfare program. And so I'll talk a little bit about that a little later, but these are some of the programs that we provide that fall under the social protection umbrella of the social services that the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs provides. Now, these are services that the ministry provides to really support the most vulnerable among us. That is really the goal, to make sure that no one is left behind. So the most vulnerable, Madam Speaker, when I say the most vulnerable, I'm really talking about those of us who, we're talking about the poorest of the poor, the indigent, the sick, the suffering, our children, the elderly, the disabled, and women who may be in lower socioeconomic brackets or in instances where they are in abusive or unhealthy environments. Madam Speaker, the work of the Ministry of Social Development really is vital to ensure that our transformation and thrust towards sustainability is effective, and that we are all included in this thrust, and that no one is left behind. That's actually, if you actually people read the estimates, it's actually in there as part of our mandate, no one being left behind. That is really what we're trying to do. And so we really want to think about it almost as, a safety net. So you have the government and you have the public, and then you have this nice little net underneath, so that the people that don't receive the benefits of what this good government administration has to offer, that of course they get caught. So nobody is going to fall on the wayside, because that's what we're trying to do, to make sure that social protection mechanisms are in place. Historically, Madam Speaker, when it comes to the budgets, the ministry has been in the top 5 when it comes to the allocation of government expenditure. So when I say that, so in terms of the allotments of how much money, so the biggest allotments from the budget, the ministry has typically been in the top 5. Because, as we would have mentioned how vitally important social protection is, and from the things that you would have heard, we provide a lot of social programs and social assistance. So, and that costs money, of course, but we want to invest in our people, because again, remember, no one is being left behind. That's really what we're trying to make sure we accomplish. Now, I want to address a couple of things that the member for number 9 would have brought up and, expressed in his presentation on Tuesday, was it? Thursday. So he would have expressed, that St. Kitts-Nevis has some of the most social assistance and social welfare programs. And it's true. It's true, Madam Speaker. Because, that is not only that because we obviously value social protection, but we care that much about our people that we can be accused of being a very big social welfare state. Now, of course, to the people receiving this welfare, it's good, but to the government purse, it's not the best. And so, we do have to be mindful that social welfare does not become the norm. That social assistance does not become the norm. And that, as the member for number 9 would have said, that people become disincentivized to hard work. We don't want that, Madam Speaker. That is not the objective at all by any means. And the truth is, it's really unfortunate that the former leadership would have enabled a culture of handouts and overdependency as a result of the approach to social assistance programming. For instance, when I say this, what I'm really referring to is, when we think about the Poverty Alleviation Program, that is affectionately known as the PAP, the way that this program was originally instituted and distributed, Madam Speaker. The approach, first of all, it didn't start out in where it should have started, within the Ministry of Social Development, because it is a social assistance program, social welfare program to help assist individuals. But the way that it was done, Madam Speaker, it was unsustainable. And remember, that's just counterintuitive to what we're trying to accomplish, of course, which is a sustainable small island state. With the Poverty Alleviation Program, Madam Speaker, the way that it was initially instituted and distributed was almost like just a handout system. There were no necessarily strong eligibility or means testing to make sure that we have the people who really need this extra income support receive the income support. And I'm sure the senior minister will talk about this a little bit more, because he belabors the point all the time. And so one of the things the PAP program, once the new administration, once we came into office, we learned that there were over 7,000 people. What was the exact number?
7,491.
7,491 people was on the PAP, Madam Speaker. 7,491. Our population is what, about 52,000 people? Madam Speaker, this is almost a fifth of our federation. So when we talk about, just think about these numbers. And we were talking about, again, I'm trying to connect this to the point that the member opposite said, just in terms of the unsustainability of us being able to to support this in the long term. If a fifth of our federation really and truly are in need of social assistance in this form, that really says a lot about the government and the leadership. And so, Madam Speaker, it's really not sustainable. This is not sustainable for us. This is why the program is really being revamped. This is why you would have heard the message from the Honorable Member for number 1 about the re-registration process that has been ongoing. And I just want to make a little plug and announcement that for individuals who may be interested in re-registering or registering newly to be considered to receive the PAP in the new year, that today we want to encourage you to get your applications in by the end or before the end of today, because we're really trying to wind down the applications. I believe the last I heard the applications were over 10,000. But again, Madam Speaker, as we think about revamping the program is going to be shifted a little, because it is, like I said, what we're really seeking to do is to ensure that the most vulnerable and those who need it get it. And as part of the revamp, Madam Speaker, the plans for this program is to institute a case management system, a case management aspect, so that people can actually be graduated off of the program. Because what we're trying to do, of course, is to not disincentivize people from hard work or from empowering themselves. That's what we're not trying to accomplish that by just continuously and indefinitely giving people this handout. We're not trying to create a handout culture, because we want for people to maintain the idea that hard work is part of our resilience, it is part of our sustainability thrust. And so while we will be reviewing the new applications and the registrations that come in, I do want the general public to know that, now that the program sits with the Ministry of Social Development, the plan is that it will, applicants will go through an eligibility and a means testing, and that a case management phase or aspect will be instituted so that we can ensure that persons don't perpetually stay on the program, but that, we'll check in to make sure that we can guide them towards opportunities for employment, for entrepreneurship, to be able to assist themselves and strengthen their ability to earn and support themselves and actually uplift themselves out of poverty or relative poverty, which is really the objective of the program. Poverty alleviation or reduction is really what we're trying to do, and not perpetuate dependency on the state, because that is not sustainable. And what we're doing, Madam Speaker, we're moving towards a sustainable small island state. So in order for us to achieve that, we do need to make sure that people can be graduated off of these programs, and that we can then reduce the persons who are really in need of this. And so, of course, like I mentioned, stricter eligibility criteria based on means testing and a balance of needs will be instituted. And so, just remember, folks, this is, a social assistance program, and it's really targeted towards the most vulnerable, the poorest among us. And we're talking about the people who really need the income support, not people, they need the income support to meet their basic needs for survival. That is, to make sure they can put food on their tables, pay for shelter, and have clothing on their backs. So we don't want people just, wanting some extra money and some top-up so they can go buy their weave or, pay for a rental over the weekend. That's not what the program is about. And unfortunately, in the first iteration on the previous leadership, that seems to be what was happening. And so we're really trying to curb that and stop that, because that is in direct counterproductivity of what we are trying to achieve as a sustainable small island state. Now, it really is unfortunate that this program, and also similar programs like it, so we would have had the Alternative Pathway Program, ALP, which is commonly known as the Peace Program, that these programs, which are really intended to be social assistance programs to help persons, was more so politicized, and politicized to a way that it has actually really cultivated that culture of dependency that was raised as a major concern by the member opposite. And so, we recognize this and we are making the hard decisions here. We're making the hard decisions because we recognize that the government purse simply cannot sustain this handout approach that was formally instituted. And that's a fact. Madam Speaker, the government purse, we just can't, we can't sustain it. It's not sustainable. And so in light of this, Madam Speaker, after discussing with the financial experts in our team and taking the advice of our highly competent financial secretary, the cabinet took the decision to refine the program and actually reduce the budget allotments for the poverty alleviation program. Let me say that again. So the PAP has not only been moved over to social development and under that purview so that we can incorporate the means testing and eligibility rules that we typically have for all of our programs, but we've also had a reduction in the budget for this program. And so with this reduction, the ministry has, for the first time in a few years, experienced a reduction in our recurrent budget expenditures. So I don't know how closely our members opposite were paying attention to the numbers, but before anybody come jam us and say we don't really care about social development because we're getting less money, the reason for that is because we recognize we have to start pulling back in the way that we just offer handouts and cultivate this handout culture. So we're working to make sure that people are empowered in other ways through other areas of government and not just through handouts. Now, in addition, one of the reasons why there has also been a reduction in the budget allotment for the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs is that with the creation and establishment of the new Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities, there has been a transfer of funding and assets and resources of the elderly care and disability services, and that financing, which was usually held by the Ministry of Social Development, has now been transferred over to this new ministry. But of course, I'll speak a little bit about that later, but I just want the public and all our members to understand and recognize why it may seem that the budget allotment for the ministry has been reduced in the estimates for 2023. So that's the reason. So, Madam Speaker, for 2023, the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs does in fact have a total budget estimate of $43,254,144. Sound hefty, right? That's a lot of money still. It sounds substantial, and Madam Speaker, this includes $3.7 million of expenditure for capital projects. Sorry, excuse me a minute. Now, the ministry is very grateful for this because, we do have plans for our capital projects, and these plans actually include renovations and upgrades to our community centers. I hope people are really excited about that because we're excited about that. Again, this was something that was raised by the member opposite, and he was talking about, we need to centralize our use for technology and, placing our laptops and computers in our community centers. But we recognize that the state of our community centers are not great. I'm sure our elected representatives, they have complained about these things. So I'm just making some space. They've complained about these things, so I know we have community centers where, roof leaking, windows broken, and we get complaints, and the truth is there are people and there are organizations that really want to use our community centers, and we want them to use our community centers. They're there for the community. We really, part of the ministry's mandate and our objective is really to facilitate community and social cohesion. We want people to use our community centers. We want our youth groups and our young people to have a free space where they can go and have their meetings, and we actually, despite the not so great condition of our community center infrastructure, we do use them still. So as a matter of fact, the Department of Community Development and Social Services do use our community centers around the island as satellite offices, and this is to ensure that persons in our rural communities have access to social services and to community development officers so that they don't have to travel and journey all the way to Bastille in order to get services and to speak to somebody from social services. So currently, our community centers are being used as satellite offices. So if anybody wasn't aware of that, if you do want to connect and contact with social services and you don't want to come to Bastille or visit the office up at Lime Kiln, you can find a satellite office at the community center in your area. And so, we have allotted over $1 million to make sure that we can facilitate renovations and upgrades to our community centers. And the ministry wants to prioritize our community center upgrades because, of course, again, they serve the people and they seek to facilitate community cohesion. It's a real objective for us. And so, Madam Speaker, of course, our community centers are multi-purpose and multi-use. In addition to being used as satellite offices, we know that they are used for community events, for private events, for community programs, and of course, very importantly, as emergency shelters. And so we definitely want to encourage the use, and of course, it's very important for us to make sure that they are functioning and that, at least you could close the windows. You imagine you have a hurricane and it's emergency shelter and the rain coming in. We can't be having them things. That's counterintuitive, So we do have budget allotted. That is $3.7 million to support the upgrades to our community centers. But Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity right now to make a plea to the public to stop vandalize the government infrastructure and the community centers. One of the problems that we have had, and I know the member for St. Kitts number 1 has expressed experiences of just how members of the public have complete disregard for our community centers. There are some members of the public who just vandalize after, we would have fixed windows. They go back and mash up the window again. And it's like, for what? Why? Why are we doing this? And so, I really want to beg the public, y'all stop mashing the government buildings. We need the community centers, and we are, while we are committed to upgrading and improving our community centers, you, the members of the public, need to take responsibility and take care of our community centers. Please, we're begging you. We really need our community members to work with our assigned community development officers in the different centers to help us with overseeing the use of the center and to take ownership of the maintenance and care. We cannot upgrade and sustain our community centers for use and community cohesion if our own people and the people in the community don't care enough to take care of these spaces as an extension of their own home. That is what we need. We need people to take ownership and take responsibility for taking care of the centers. And it's not just about vandalism, it's about when you use it too. When you use the center, clean it up. If you make it clean, leave it clean. These are some of the concerns and complaints that we get from our community development officers when they're really trying to make sure that people have access to the centers. So please, we want to make sure, see how we done budget for these capital projects. We want to make sure that when we're done putting the money and the investment, that the people, the community, takes ownership and takes care of these spaces. We really need that. So I'm making a very strong plea to the community and to the public to take care of our community centers. And just, to offer some specifics in terms of our plans for our community centers and capital projects, the honorable member for number 2 would be pleased to know that the McKnight Community Center is on the top of the list for our major repairs for 2023. And so, I want the people, or the good people of number 2, to know that your representative is working, that she be making sure she advocates for you. So we hear that. And so, y'all want to keep her. So we have prioritized the McKnight Community Center as the top of the list for major repairs in 2023. And, the repairs we're looking at include plumbing and ventilation. And we've also prioritized this center because, the McKnight Community Center also serves as the primary location and the base for the daily programming of the St. Kitts Disabilities Association. So every day, members of this association, this is where they go to do their programming, this is where they go to meet, this is where they have all of their activities. So this is another reason why we're prioritizing the McKnight Community Center and the upgrades to this community center in 2023. So please, Disabilities Association, we have heard you, and we have the budget allotment, and so we plan to go ahead with that. So I'm happy that the honorable member for number 3 and Minister of Public Works entered, because Public Works is the one who we will have to be counting on to make sure that these upgrades happen. So I'm also told that we do plan to make some also minor roof repairs to the community centers in Old Road and also in St. Paul's. So that is on the agenda, and we do hope to get to them in the 2023 year through the budget allotment that we have for capital projects. But again, once we done make these renovations, these upgrades and maintenance, members of the public, please make sure you help to preserve them. And if you see anybody vandalizing the centers, call the police, because vandalism is a crime. Is that right, Attorney General? Yes, okay, good. There's a crime, and we have an AG who don't play. So, so please take care of the centers and stop vandalizing them, members of the public and community members. Now, in addition to the capital projects that we have outlined, we do plan to reserve just some funding so that we can also support the renovations of the actual office space for the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs. So that's just with all transparency for the people to know that the 3.2 million is also supposed to factor in some renovations, well-needed renovations that we need to the office space to support the staff fleet that we have who deliver these social services and human services. Okay, Madam Speaker. Now, in addition to capital projects, most of the ministry's budget, of course, will be used to support and build upon our program and service delivery across the different departments. So, Madam Speaker, we have multiple departments within the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs, and so I'll take the opportunity to go department by department to let you know what the plans are, what some of our accomplishments are, and how we plan to use the government's resources to improve and support our service delivery. So, program delivery, when it comes to community development and social services, so these are typically our community development officers who are based in our communities, and our social assistance officers who deliver our social services. The plan for this department is to return to the standard approach for social protection. So our programming will return to the model that was there once before, but then was, stopped under previous leadership. So we want to reintroduce case management to support skills and knowledge acquisition of targeted populations so that we can build resiliency and independence, because of course we're moving towards a sustainable small island state. So we want to make sure that we can help with our programming for our people who come for social assistance, to help them through case management, to make sure that we're assisting them and guiding them, directing them towards the resources that help them to advance their training, that help them to find opportunities for employment, so that they can build their own resiliency and empower themselves so that they are not perpetually on our social assistance programs. Of course, people need to be graduated off of social assistance because we're not trying to be a social welfare state. We want to be strong and resilient and independent and self-reliant. We also plan to have fuller engagement with our communities so that we can really understand the needs of our community and see what we need to do as part of our post-COVID-19 recovery efforts. We've had, within the estimates, we have been able to approve the creation and addition of some additional staffing positions for, one for a social assistance officer and one for community development officer, which would allow us to then regularize a couple GAE workers and bring them onto the appointed positions that we have. So I want to take the opportunity to thank the staff who work diligently and who work hard with members in the community to really assist persons who come in, and really pour out, the struggles and the challenges that they're having in life and why they really need the support and social assistance. And so I really want to thank the staff within the Department of Community Development and Social Services for their work. I really appreciate what you do and want to continue to encourage you to do that. So we've been able through this budget to be able to increase a little bit by a little, just increase the staffing, or to be able to get these appointed positions so we can regularize a couple workers. And that will also allow us to, with the expected increase now that we have the PAP program under the purview of social development, it gives us the manpower and resources, or the woman power, and the resources to be able to deliver this program and to deliver the case management. In addition to the social assistance officer and the community development officer, we've also been able to get an additional case manager. Remember, I told you that case management is going to be reinstituted and reintroduced as part of the social assistance framework and approach. So we are grateful to be able to have these positions so that we can actually execute in terms of our programming to become a lot more effective in the work that we do to graduate people off of social assistance. So that is community development. So next we have our National Counseling Center. Now, I would have met with all of the departments within the ministry when it first started, and I must say I was very, when I walked into the counseling center, the staff and, the morale and just the vibe was all very zen. Whatever they're doing up there, it's working. Everybody gets along at the National Counseling Center. And so I want to just take this opportunity to give a shout out to all of the clinical counselors and the family counselors at the National Counseling Center. This is really, National Counseling Center really focuses on advocacy and awareness around mental health, and they also provide obviously counseling, and counseling is open and available to everybody across the Federation. And I think the recognition of the need for mental health counseling is increasing, and the stigma that has traditionally been around mental health has been reducing, and I think that can be quite attributed to just the professionalism of our counselors. And so I really want to thank the Counseling Center for the work that they're doing. And they've really seen some successes. We've really seen that the trends have shown that on average, our clinical counselors see a total of 175 clients per year, with contact time of about 50 minutes per session. And this is with a client who stays on the books for about 6 to 8 months with a therapeutic relationship. So it's been very beneficial. It's been very beneficial to the people, and they're actually saying that they're gonna soon probably ask for more positions because they have a lot of clients. And so we want to really thank them for that. We also are seeing more children and adolescents who are seeking counseling, seeking this form of therapy and mental health support. And of course, just statistically, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, the center would have registered a 20 to 25% increase in the requests for services, because I believe, statistically, we would have seen that the COVID-19 pandemic would have had major issues and challenge for persons dealing with mental health during that time. And so, the counseling center is there and they continue to do their work. We may potentially see a need in the future, not in 2023, but in the future, for increasing the resources in our National Counseling Center, especially as we have heard that not even just outside of individuals, but also within our work environments, that our staff, particularly I can remember for number 2 would have mentioned that her staff in some of her departments would have expressed a need for some sort of psychosocial support. And so we do want to be responsive as the National Counseling Center to be able to support individuals and groups, and that is part of the plan moving forward for 2023. The staff and the director at the counseling center would like to be able to do some more group counseling, and also just to be able, just recognizing the influx of clientele that they're getting. They do plan to institute a sliding fee structure starting in 2023. And really this fee structure is just so that individuals can take ownership of the fact that they are seeking this service. Currently, counseling from the counseling center is available for free, but they do plan to institute a sliding fee structure so that they can ensure that persons who book the appointments actually show up for the appointments when they say they will, and just take some ownership in the investment that they're making into their mental health. It will be a nominal fee. Of course, we're not trying to deter persons, but this is also an opportunity for the counseling center to generate a bit of revenue for the departments and for the ministry. So that is one thing that the public should be aware of and just be considerate of. Again, it would just be a very nominal fee. And on the point of mental health counseling, we really want to ensure that people feel encouraged. Again, the stigma around mental health, thankfully has been reducing. And, mental health support is really something that is vital. I personally have a therapist, and I think everybody should have a therapist at some point in their life. It's very beneficial in ways that you may not know. And so we really want to continue that advocacy and that awareness building, and really, encourage people to think about your mental health as you think about any other type of health. So your physical health, your sexual health, you really need to think about the health of your mind, mindfulness. Because it is important. What you think and what you feel, they are very much correlated. And so the work of the National Counseling Center will continue. And again, I want to thank the staff who work there very hard. And we also want to continue to make a plea for individuals to actually go off to study. And to actually go up to the point of getting graduate degrees in psychology and counseling, because we also need those skills. And we encourage men as well. We need some males to be invested in this profession, because we do find that men seem to be more comfortable talking to men, which is fine when it comes to therapy. And we would hope that we can shift that trajectory and we have fewer males who seek counseling. So that's making a plug there for any young person who might be considering or wondering what they should go off to do. Psychology, there is space and there is opportunity in this space for us to be able to provide the even additional services and support. And I want to thank our partners, who is the Mental Health Association and other associations that work in this space. They work closely with the counseling center, and our guidance counselors in schools who work with the counseling center to be able to deliver services to support the mental health of our federation. Because that is also important if we're talking about sustainability and resilience of our people. Madam Speaker, on to the New Horizons Juvenile Rehabilitation Center. Now, for those who may not be aware, the New Horizons Juvenile Rehabilitation Center is a facility that was instituted just 10 years ago. It was established 10 years ago, and it's really to be able to support the rehabilitation of young people who came into conflict with the law. And so the center had started to be able to, provide young people with rehabilitation so that they can, find a new horizon and be rehabilitated to reintegrate into society as productive individuals after having come into conflict with the law. Now, over the years, in the past few years, I just want to make sure that I'm not interrupted by the lateness of the honorable member opposite. Thank you for joining us, sir. So, Madam Speaker, apologies. As I was saying, the New Horizons Juvenile Rehabilitation Center, we, over the past few years, would have experienced some few challenges with the center itself, the actual infrastructure of the building. an environmental hazard was caused, so we had some issues with the building, and so that has forced the staff and the functionary and the operations of the center to relocate. And so we actually recently completed relocation of the center just last month. And so we're now in a new temporary location while we seek to have repairs done on the center, and that has been prioritized for 2023 so that we can see the full reopening of the New Horizons Juvenile Rehabilitation Center. We currently, we don't have, thankfully, fortunately, I must say, we don't have too many young people at the center. So we are focusing right now on training of staff, old staff and new, and a little bit of a deployment so that they can be attached to different departments and sectors to be able to get some training while we work on repairing the original site and restoring the operations fully of the center. Want to take this opportunity to really thank the organizations and associations that have been supportive of the work that the center has done. The Bar Association would have recently donated some equipment to the center for use for the staff, and so we're grateful for that. And like I said, the focus is to, for staff training in the different areas, and we plan to deploy the staff and just kind of temporarily attach them to different departments as we work on renovating the center, and especially since right now we don't have a very high number of individuals, of juveniles, I don't like to call young people juveniles, but of young people who are in need of rehabilitation at the center. And so that is the plan for New Horizons, but for the past 10 years, we have really been working to support youth rehabilitation and youth reintegration into society so that we can, almost kind of sort of implement some kind of diversion for our young people to make sure that they are healthy and productive. So the Department of Gender Affairs, Madam Speaker. Now, I wanted to just take this opportunity to start. I know this morning I woke up early, as I usually do. I had plans to go for a nice run, but I was swayed from that because I got news of a social media report from a private individual who's known, very well known in the media, and it would have reported just the incident of domestic violence for a young woman who was clearly threatened by an abusive partner. And so just want the general public to know that I am aware, that the department is aware, and that we have already made movements, and we have taken action to ensure that this young woman is protected, that she and her child are protected, and that the person who was clearly threatening her and her life is apprehended. And so I want the public to be assured that the incidents and that domestic violence and threats of that violence are being taken seriously by the administration. I want people to know that the Prime Minister is the one who actually sent me the video, and he was like, what are we doing about this? And, I responded, and, we took action immediately. And so the police commissioner would have met with the young woman, and we're trying to make sure that she is protected and safe, and that the individual is apprehended. And just on that point, the plans for the department, we would have already heard about the commitment that we do have to making sure that we combat gender-based violence and domestic violence across the Federation. Yes, getting to that, Prime Minister, yes. So some things that we would have already done just within our 100 days was, we have amended the domestic violence legislation to make sure that it's more accessible for victims and survivors to gain protection orders and restraining orders, so that can be done a lot easier. and that just the functioning and operations can flow a lot more fluidly. And so with that, we are hopeful that with these initial amendments that things can move a little swifter in terms of the system and processing of incidents. And of course, we do have plans. We still have plans for 2023. The Prime Minister would have mentioned in the budget address just the plans for training of our police force. And, on this, I want to take a moment because I think there are a few things that would have come out in this video and this report just about, delayed response by police officers and, the lack of confidence that the public and individuals may have in our law enforcement. Now, we recognize that this may be a challenge and this may be an area that is in need of improvement. We recognize that, and that is why we do have in the budget and plans for training and improvements in terms of the relationship that the department has with special victims and also with all of the police officers. What we would really like to see, for sure, what I would really like to see is for, all police officers to understand and recognize that it is not only the special victims unit that needs to respond when we get these reports. So really, when we get these reports, when you get these reports, we need to respond with urgency. And of course, you forward the report on to the Special Victims Unit, which is a unit within the police force that is intended to deal with crimes of these matters, that is in relation to abuse, violence of women, men, children. But in terms of being first responders, the expectation is that if anyone reports a matter of this, in terms of gender-based violence, domestic violence to the police, that they're not left having to wait 2 hours to have somebody respond. So just like any other matter, we would expect that incidents and cases of violence against individuals, against women in the domestic sphere, in relationships, and men, of course, yes, and children, that it is responded to with urgency and not just put on the back burner and say, well, that's a SVU matter, we just expect SVU to respond. While SVU is manned with dealing with these crimes, we don't have the capacity to be able to respond as urgently, and so we really would hope that all police officers understand their duty to respond with urgency when we have reports of domestic violence or any form of gender-based violence, abuse, harassment, or anything. We really do need to do more. We need to do better when it comes to responding to keeping people safe and out of danger. And so I really want to make that plea to our police and all persons. If you're in the community and this is happening, don't be afraid to call. And we've already gotten a bit of outrage. Like I said, I understand that in the public there is a lack of confidence in our police, but that's something that can be changed, and I'm committed to making sure that we can move the dial forward so that we can really take these crimes seriously, because it's happening too much. It's happening too much, and it's severe. The level of threats that this man would have made to this woman and her child gives me goosebumps. It's terrible, and we need to stop it. If he did. Sure. And so that's the lawyer speaking, but she's the defense lawyer. But and that's fair. Allegedly, I can say that's okay. Okay, have me. Okay, see that, sir. But we regardless, we do know that these incidents happen far too often, and we do prefer to be precautious and ensure that at least there's a response. There should at least be a response by the police, even if it's true or not. There should be a response to any report of violence. Okay, and so that is really the point that we really want to make. And so I just wanted to make sure I started with that, because I know members of the public have been sending this video around and asking questions about what is the response. We are very well aware, and action has been taken. Okay? Okay, so in relation to gender affairs, again, in the work that we would have done, just in this past year, I would have traveled to Geneva just in this year to be able to present to the UN Committee on the elimination of violence and abuse against women. And so this is a UN panel, because as we are signed on to this convention, we did have a duty and obligation to report to say how far we have gotten with meeting these obligations, and we would have received a number of recommendations from the committee. And so the plans for 2023 would be to implement some of these recommendations in relation to, temporary special measures, in relation to employment and economic empowerment of women. And so we do plan to take some of these things on board. And so the plans for 2023 would be to implement some of these recommendations, and of course to continue the programming that already exists. So we have our mentorship program for boys, as well as for our girls empowerment programs. We do plan to continue these because we do recognize that in our fight and our efforts to achieve gender equity and to reduce the scourge and eliminate the scourge of violence, that we obviously need to get at our young people, and we need to teach them. We need to teach them what healthy relationships look like. We need to teach them about confidence and self-confidence. We need to teach them about healthy masculinity. We need to teach them about, confident femininity. And so we really want to ensure that these programs are strong. And I want to thank the adult mentors who contribute their time to volunteer to support these young people through this mentoring, because it's really important. Mentorship has been proven to be effective. And so we want to thank those who volunteer their time to support the department with this programming. So that's our girls empowerment and mentoring, and our boys mentoring programs that we would have instituted some additional chapters and launched just this year. So we plan to continue with that. We also would have had a successful cohort of our Women's Economic and Entrepreneurship Empowerment Program, which was thankfully sponsored by the Republic of China, Taiwan, and the Taiwan ICDF. And so this program is an opportunity for our women entrepreneurs to gain some training and find ways and network to be able to establish their business ideas and gain their entrepreneurial skills so that they can build their business and support themselves. And so we really want to thank our sponsors, like I said, the Republic of China, Taiwan, who's a very strong diplomatic partner, and we're grateful for that, and we look forward to continued work with them based on the successful delivery of the first cohort of our Women's Economic Entrepreneurship Empowerment Program. So in terms of our plans moving forward, again, we do plan to continue our programming and, of course, continue with the implementation of our national gender equity policy and action plan. We continue to have a strong working relationship with the Nevis Department of Gender Affairs. They have been over to St. Kitts a number of times just this year to support our programming, and we've similarly been over to Nevis to be able to assist and support them as well with the work that they're doing, and we look forward to it being continued. We do plan for 2023 to, like I said, the department within these estimates, we've been able to secure the creation of a case management position within our very, very small Department of Gender Affairs. We have one small additional position that we seek to be able to implement some case management to be able to allow us to respond better and to improve our efficiency when it comes to supporting victims of domestic violence. And so we are grateful to have that instituted and also to be able to have some bit of regularization for the staff there in that small department. And so we look forward to 2023 being able to strengthen the work that we do in combating gender-based violence. Like I said, we look forward to working with the police force as they move forward in terms of training of all our law enforcement officers who are our first responders in incidents of gender-based and domestic violence. And we also seek to continue strengthening our partnerships with the NGOs. Now, we recognize that a very big problem that we have when it comes to addressing gender-based violence is we have an absence of social housing and safe houses to place women who might be in these situations. We currently do not have a government-run center or safe house. However, we do appreciate the work that our NGO partners do to provide shelter services. And so as part of the budget, we do have money that the ministry offers and for subvention to some of these shelters to make sure that they can continue the work as we seek to identify a more long-term and sustainable solution to providing some sort of safe house and safe shelter and social protection housing, so that we can really strengthen the ecosystem when it comes to removing women or enabling women, facilitating them to exit domestic violence situations. It really is a complex issue when it comes to domestic violence. It's not as easy as, oh, well, why she don't just leave? And we can please stop saying that. Don't ever say that to a woman who has experienced domestic violence, okay? Just gonna put that out there for everybody to know. This. Yes, so don't ever say, oh, why she don't just leave? That's not okay to say, okay? That's not okay to say. Because we don't understand or recognize the complexity around what it means to be in a situation of domestic violence. Sometimes it's a matter of you just don't have anywhere else to go. Sometimes you literally just don't have the money or the resources to exit the situation. Sometimes you really, the level of domination or dependency is so extreme that the thinking is that it may just be better to stay in this situation, because how else are you going to find support and help? And that's another thing that I was just gonna say. Thank you, member. So the stigma and the shame that victims may experience, and this is both women and men, the level of shame that individuals carry being in these situations can really be silencing, because there's an assumption that domestic violence only happens to a certain type of person. But this is actually not true. It can happen to anyone. And you can say as much as you like until it happens to you. And so, we really want to encourage the public to offer more compassion and less judgment, because we don't need that. That's not helpful. So more compassion and less judgment as we really work to raise awareness around the issue and seek to address it legislatively as well as structurally and systematically and institutionally. It's a very complex problem. And so we are committed, I'm definitely committed to seeing how we can move the dial forward in any and every way. So thank you very much, and I'm grateful to have a leader, Prime Minister, who is also committed, and a cabinet in support of that. So thank you very much. Now, similarly and connected, we have the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services. Now, the work that PCPS does, so that's Probation and Child Protection Services, I've referred to it as PCPS. The work that they do is obviously directly related to the protection of children and child justice. And so oftentimes the Department of Gender Affairs and Probation and Child Protection Services have to work together, because when we have, let's say, a mother or a woman who is in a situation of domestic violence and she has a child, that child may also similarly experience some violence, some abuse, some neglect. That is when Probation and Child Protection Services have to come into being. We have legislation, we have acts that actually guide the work of this department. So we have the Child Justice Act, we have the Child Welfare Act, and so these legislation actually guide the work of our probation and child protection and child justice officers. So some of the work that we want to do moving forward in 2023 is, of course, we want to increase the awareness and presence and the efficiency of this department and make sure that our staff are equipped and trained to deal with the plethora of issues that come to them. Part of the advocacy and awareness is so people can really understand what the jurisdiction of probation and child protection services is. I think sometimes members of the public may be confused as to what is really an issue of custody versus what is an issue for child welfare. So, just a point for persons to understand, if you and your partner have a disagreement about who gets the child versus who doesn't get the child, that's a custody issue. However, if it jumps into the realm of the child is being neglected, the child is being abused, the child is being harassed, then you call probation and child protection services and you say the child's welfare is in danger, it's not being very well taken care of, their well-being is being neglected by their parents, one or both. You call probation and child protection services. That is the work that we do in terms of protecting our children. And if there was an impression given previously that the state doesn't care about children because we don't see enough or we don't hear enough about PCPS, we want to assure the public that that is not the case. That as the minister, we want to make sure that people know we care a lot about our children, and whatever resources that this department needs, we're committed to making sure that they have it. And so in 2023, we can look forward to improving our foster care programming. So within this budget, we've actually been able to allow for a slight increase in the foster care allowance. So our foster care programming is very important and sits within this department because we provide for foster parents. Sometimes we have instances where we do need to remove children from their biological parents, and our foster parents and our foster programming really allows us to ensure that these children can be placed into a loving and healthy home environment. And so we are able to facilitate, and we've been able to increase the foster care allowance through this budget so that the amount that these foster parents get can keep pace with obviously inflation and the needs, because children cost money. And so we look forward to that from this budget. We also look forward to seeing a project that has been funded by USAID to continue in relation to juvenile justice reform. So that's the probation aspect of probation and child protection services. We also try to deal with young people who may be tagged as more problematic in society. And so we've been able to thankfully gain some funding from these agencies to support our juvenile justice reform. We're grateful for that investment. This year we also would have started and initiated reviews for the legislation around our Child Welfare Board and their roles and responsibilities. And so we look forward to continuing that work and move forward towards revision of this legislation and potential amendments to this act in the future. I want to take the opportunity to express great thanks and appreciation to the members of the Probation and Child Welfare Board. That would have been the last board that was it for the past 3 years. That board was under the leadership of the previous chair, Mr. Maurice Williams. We're really grateful for the work that board would have done and the former chair would have done. Under Mr. Williams' leadership and guidance, we were able to evolve our child justice and protection system, and it was particularly during a challenging time during COVID-19. And by steering the ship and by taking charge, we are now on course to continue building on the lessons learned to respond to the needs of our children and our young people who come into conflict, who might have challenges adjusting in society, and so particularly in our post-COVID context. And so thank you to the members of the past welfare board and the past chair. We are grateful, and we do recognize the work that you would have done to establish and move the dial forward on our child justice and protection system. We're also very grateful to the international donors who continue to support the department. So we have UNICEF, UN Women, USAID, PAHO, the UPR Trust Fund. Thank you very much for the financial and technical assistance that is provided to the department and the ministry. It has been extremely helpful and useful, and we continue to look forward to this. A lot of the work that we do in social development is really, really supported by these multi-agencies and these international donors, because a lot of the work is really centered around human services, and we seek to ensure that we preserve human rights. Social protection, again, is about the welfare and the well-being of individuals and people, and we do that within the framework of the numerous conventions that we are signed onto. And so we're grateful to have these multi-agency partners, these international donors, to really help to supplement our budget, which can sometimes exceed based on the programming and the work that we have to do. So we're thankful for that, and we look forward to continued partnership and support. I also want to express a very hearty thank you and appreciation to the outgoing permanent secretary, who's Mrs. Jana Lewis Tafari of the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs. Mrs. Lewis would have spent her entire time as a public servant in the civil service at the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs. She's now being called upon to use those years of experience to craft a more dynamic and responsive new Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities. So she is transitioning out of Social Development and Gender Affairs and is going to be the new permanent secretary. She is the new permanent secretary for the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities. She's not going to be too far away, because I'm now going to move into how these two ministries are going to work together moving forward. And so thank you very much to Ms. Lewis for her years of service within Social Development and Gender Affairs. So now we are going to move on to youth empowerment, aging and disabilities. Madam Speaker, the decision to combine these areas was very deliberate and intentional. We don't do things willy-nilly on this side of the government. You see, Madam Speaker, transformation towards a sustainable small island state really requires us to engage all demographics of our population, because our people are really and truly our most valuable asset. And all of our people, regardless of ability, regardless of age, regardless of sex, gender, whatever it is, all of us have something to contribute, and all of us can be productive once we are able to be accommodated and enabled in the ways that we need. And so with the establishment of this new ministry, this SKNLP-led administration really demonstrates its commitment to empowering our young people, supporting and enabling our older persons and our persons with disabilities. We also decided, when we think about the combination of these three areas, we're really looking to also cultivate a culture where we have an ease of flow with, the transfer of knowledge, or transgenerational relationships, where we want to cultivate that culture of more collaboration across these demographics and across these areas. So, the vision, of course, is, to see how we can cultivate a culture where we have our young people taking care of our older persons, and our older persons transferring that knowledge and supporting and encouraging our younger persons, and also learning from our young people. And of course, also our recognition of the differently abled, and just sharing, being able to honor a different perspective of living and existing in the world that we have. And so it was very deliberate and intentional, because the thrust with this ministry is really to to improve and ramp up programming where we have collaborations across these areas. And we really have to do this. We really have to be proactive in the way we think about our aging and our disabled, because the demographics of our federation is showing that our population is shifting. It's shifting into an aging population. And what that really means is that we expect to have more persons over the age of 62 and fewer persons under the age of 5. And that's already existing. That's just global trends, because reality is young people, young women just have fewer and fewer children, and because, you know, of our quality of life, we have life expectancy is increased. So we have, you know, I think we have like 10 centenarians in St. Kitts-Nevis, because life is good here, thanks to God. And so, on the label, thank you very much, member. And so, never. God like order and good governance too, you know. Okay. So, he does. You know, order is the first law of the kingdom. My father says that all the time. So, Madam Speaker, the point is that we have an aging population, and so we really do need to start thinking strategically and thinking proactively about how we can engage our older persons who are also very vibrant and very capable and still have a lot to offer. And so how we can engage them, and even for our more elderly persons, see how we can help to assist and facilitate them with aging with dignity. And so the 2023 estimates that we have made budget allocations for the establishment of a unit for elderly enrichment and a unit for disability services.
Indulgence, Honourable Member, you have 15 minutes left on your allotted time.
Okay. Thank you. Noted. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm taking up all the space today. And so we have allotted, for the budget allocations have made provision for the establishment of these units. And of course, you know, initially they're going to be very small, probably like a staff of 3. But as I would have mentioned previously, we would have already, through the Ministry of Social Development, been offering services for our elderly in the form of home care assistance. And so that programming would now be underneath the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging and Disabilities. And so our elderly enrichment unit will be supervising and coordinating the work that was already being done by our home care officers, and we've actually sought to offer some training to a new cohort of home care officers so that we can improve and increase the assistance that we're able to provide persons in the Federation with supporting and just kind of helping to assist where elderly are at home. And so we look forward to that. Of course, this cohort of persons are on the STEP program, thanks to our member for number 1, and that was his brainchild, so we're grateful to make sure that we can have this assistance. Because of course, some of the plans now, the elderly enrichment unit, they will now, as I would have mentioned, they now manage the home care programming that we would have had under social development, and we've already, the commitment that we had in the SKNLP manifesto and over the campaign trail of establishing and instituting our elderly daycares, that is going to be piloted in 2023. So the plan for us for 2023, we hope to facilitate, we plan to use our community centers. So we plan to pilot our daycare centers for the elderly in 2 or 3 community centers around the islands, so that we can offer more programming to engage our seniors in very healthy and interactive ways that we know they will appreciate and enjoy, so that they can, you know, age well and age with dignity. And, you know, so some of the programming during the month of older persons, which was in October, we had a slew of activities and events that our older persons and our seniors really enjoyed. And so what we really want to do is extend that so that we can have that ongoing throughout the year and not just packed into 1 month. So the idea around our daycare centers is, you know, for our seniors to be able to be transported to our centers and to be there for a few hours throughout the day so they can interact with each other. And also we hope to have our young volunteers, our youth, have the opportunity to come in and offer some companionship and play some games. So that whole transgenerational aspect and approach, because again, we're trying to cultivate a culture of care. We're all about care. Dr. Drew cares. So we want to make sure that we cultivate that culture across the board, because we want to make sure that our seniors are cared for and that our young people learn from the knowledge that our older people have to bring. Okay? And so the daycare centers are coming. I know the honorable member for number 1 then said he wants us to have a prom for our seniors. And I know they're gonna love that, because old people like to party. A prom, I'm telling you, because ain't only young people supposed to have proms. And so it's just an opportunity. It's an opportunity for it's an opportunity for our seniors to also dress up and have a red carpet. We need to treat them well too. They deserve it. We ain't not yet, but you coming. Maybe it will be in October, but that is one of the things that my senior minister said he wants us to do, and I'm like, yes, okay, we're doing it. Okay? Okay, now for our disability services unit, we also look forward to working with our persons who are differently abled in this community. I would have met with the Disabilities Association, would have visited Addie's Place, who had their open house just a few weeks ago, and we really want to give a shout out to these associations, these organizations, not just Addie's Place and the Association for Persons with Disabilities, but also the Nevis Blind, Light and Visually Impaired Society, Carding Home, the Flamboyant Nursing Home, our Cotton Thomas Comprehensive School, the Cicely Brown Integrated School, and the Spectrum Services Center. All of these are non-governmental organizations and agencies that work to provide support services, training, education, and the like for our persons who are differently abled. And of course, the new Disability Services Unit would be helping to continue supporting these agencies, these organizations in their work. And we plan to really work on finalizing a national disability policy, which has been in the works for some time, from what I understand. And we want to be able to formalize that policy, complete it. We also want to increase advocacy and awareness around persons with disabilities. We really want to remove the stigma and have people stop thinking about disability as a major health problem, because it's not really always that. So we want people to just recognize our persons with disabilities as individuals who are just differently abled, so they have a lot to contribute still, and they can be productive. However, they just need special accommodations, and there's nothing wrong with a special accommodation. Sometimes if you can't see too good, you put on some glasses, that's all, you know what I mean? And so we really want to increase our advocacy and awareness around that. And of course, one thing that we would have heard from our associations is that they really want opportunities for training and education, and opportunities for more job attachments and internships. And so we really want to see how we can facilitate that. And so we look forward to having our unit set up and established with our small, very small staff complements to be able to coordinate some of this work. And so we're grateful to be able to have this. And again, this is a promise that was made on the campaign trail by the St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party, and we are happy to be delivering and moving that forward. How am I for time? Can I beg for more time right now, please? 6 minutes? Well, I'm going to ask for the time still right now, because I'm going to need more than that, please. Oh, at the end? Oh, okay, sorry, okay, got it. Okay, well, we are on youth empowerment. So the Department of Youth Empowerment has always been long-standing and established, but now, we are at a point where we are established as a ministry, of course, again, in combination with aging and disability. And, the plans for programming for the department is for youth and youth focus to become mainstreamed. We want, youth to be mainstreamed. We would have known that engaging young people in our development thrust is a priority for this administration. It has been expressed time and time again by the Prime Minister and our member for number 8. And so we, as the Youth Department, plan to increase our work and increase the presence that we have by making sure the department can become like the centralized hub for everything young and youthful. And so we really want to spread our programming out over the year and become a lot more vibrant, be seen more. And so we want to begin doing this work by really encouraging youth groups and youth organizations to re-energize, to become re-established, and to come to taking the lead in your communities. And I would hope that my presence as a member in this cabinet, giving young people a bit of motivation to come out from, behind their screens and to get together to take ownership of developmental thrusts as we try to become a sustainable small island state. One of the trends that we've seen is in the youth department is that we don't have as many youth organizations registering with us. And so we really want to reestablish the registration process for our youth groups and our youth organizations, and for them to recognize the support that the department is willing to give in terms of capacity building and support to these organizations. Of course, we recognize the established organizations that continue to do work. Of course, we have the St. Kitts National Youth Parliamentary Association, we have our volunteer corps, we have Pathfinders, and we have these organizations that have been long established and that continue to do the work as youth organizations. But we want to continue to encourage, especially our church youth groups, our other community groups, our sports clubs. Please, reach out to the youth department and just let us know who you are. Let us know that you are out here, and let us know that you're interested in being part and parcel of whatever opportunities, whatever resources, whatever training, whatever small micro grants or funding we might be able to find to support our youth groups and youth organizations, because we are serious about being able to develop and empower our young people, and we want to make sure that we support them through these structures so that they can volunteer more. Volunteerism is very important for our young people, and we want to be able to make sure that they're supported. I would have held a ministers forum as part of Youth Month, and some of the things the young people were saying that they want, they want to see more sporting complex and facilities, and I would have had conversation with the honorable member for number 4 about what is the plan for sports, Minister of Sports, and so we would have heard about the plans for sports, and I asked about, they said our young people want indoor facilities. They really do. I actually saw a young person post on Facebook the other day, talking about how we can't have no indoor sporting facilities and such. So I want the young people to know that we are aware, and the minister is aware, and the minister have plans, because I then ask him, what is we doing about this? And so on the way, it's on the way. So young people know it's on the way. You have been heard, and your message is being conveyed to the people who can take action, and we're doing it. So asking people for a bit of patience, but we do recognize that sports is an area that is really an opportunity for young people. It's an opportunity for educational advancement and progress. It's an opportunity to maintain your health and wellness. It's an opportunity for social skills development, for leadership, for discipline. And so we know it's very important, sports, and we want to make sure that the facilities are available. So please know that it is part of the vision and the plan towards our sustainable small island state. Remember that. That's our chorus today. Sustainable small island state. Okay. I want to take this opportunity just to talk a little bit about the interministerial collaborations, right? So as a youth department, the objective is for us to mainstream youth. So what that means is we want to be able to have across all of the ministries that in the strategic plans, in the visions of the individual ministries, that you're also thinking, how are we going to engage the young people in this plan? And so Of course, interministerial partnerships is a big part of that. And we've already had some of that done in this year. We would have seen that through tourism. We would have had the visit to the CFBC, where we're trying to connect our tourism operators, our hoteliers with young people so that they can train and enter the tourism market at an earlier point, and so they can start their careers. So I want to really thank the member for number 2 and the Minister for Tourism for taking that initiative, and we look forward to it being continued, because it's really positive, because, you know, job creation and job opportunities is a major concern for our young people. And so on that note, we also look forward to partnerships with the small business and creative economy. We do recognize that our young people are very creative. They're very creative, and, you know, we seek opportunities for them to display their talents and be compensated for that, and trained to see how they can develop these skills into entrepreneurial ventures. And so we're happy to have the Ministry of Small Business and Development and Creative Economy, so that, you know, they can be connected there. We also look forward to continued partnerships with environment and climate action. My dear Honorable Senator, of course, always thinks about young people too, and we would have seen that demonstration when she sent, was it 10 young people? 10 young people to COP. They went all the way to Egypt. I didn't even get to go to Egypt. 10-member delegation, but 4 young people, my apologies. But 4 young people, they went.
Honorable member, honorable member, you are out of time.
Totally?
Yes.
Oh, may I request an additional amount of time to wrap up, please, Madam Speaker?
Honorable members, the honorable senator has requested an additional bit of time. The maximum of which she has is 30.
I'll take it.
Those in favor? Those against? You may proceed, honorable senator.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Okay. So I'll wrap up soon. But yes, the point I was making is the partnerships that already existed, and so we would have seen, you know, young people being considered to be part of our push towards environmental sustainability and climate action through their participation at COP, which is a major conference. And remember the major win we got at COP, which was the commitment to establish a fund for loss and damages. And of course, that's very important to us as a sustainable island, small island state, because we are susceptible to the impacts and effects of climate change. And so, you know, having these partnerships are very important to us, and we want to be able to extend the considerations of the youth voice and youth representation in all areas across the ministry. And so, you know, before I wrap up, I want to talk about the plans that we have for 2023 through the youth department. Of course, you know, we do plan to maintain our flagship programming, which is our annual summer youth camp. And I just want people to know that the senior minister done say that he expects this youth summer camp to be the biggest of the big, the most extravagant, because it is the 40th anniversary for summer camp. And so we really have plans to bring back alumni from camp. We really have plans to connect with our private sector for sponsorship and support, with facilitators and volunteers to provide a summer camp program that is really beneficial, that is fun, that is educational, that is edifying, that offers our young people new opportunities and new insights. And so there's one thing you can look forward to in terms of the youth department's plans for this year. I want to take this opportunity also to highlight we talk about, you know, interministerial partnerships, that the first interministerial partnership we expect to complete or execute in the new year is one with the Prime Minister's office, and that is with our 25 most remarkable teens who would have received their awards in November. So the Prime Minister is hosting our 25 remarkable teens to a lovely dinner. And, the plan is, of course, engage our young people to start brainstorming the ideas for community projects. That is part of the Most Remarkable Teen program. And so they'll be sit down with the Prime Minister, and we will, start talking about some of their ideas for projects that they can do in their community. So I want to thank the Prime Minister for his commitment to that as our first interministerial partnership with the Youth Department. Thank you for taking the lead, Prime Minister. And so, of course, I also take this opportunity to really thank the staff of the Youth Department. We want to acknowledge the contribution and the work that Mr. Priya Liebert would have done as director for the past few years. At our volunteer recognition award at the end of our Youth Month activities, he would have made the announcement that he's transitioning out of the Youth Department and moving on to other things. And so we want to thank him very much for his leadership for the Youth Department over the years. And we thank the staff who continue to do the work, and just kind of look forward to the Youth Department doing more and being more visible, because we really want to demonstrate that our young people, the leadership capabilities that they do have, and they have really great ideas. We, because I'm young. We have great ideas and great competence and great capabilities, and the department really wants to facilitate that growth, empowerment, and development as we move towards a sustainable island state. And of course, as the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Aging, and Disabilities, that thrust will be done in collaboration and togetherness as we seek to facilitate transgenerational partnerships, transgenerational relationships, and knowledge transfer and support for each other where that's a mutual relationship. And so we are grateful for the opportunity, and that's just a sign of proactive vision. And so we're grateful for that. Now, Madam Speaker, as I wrap up, finally, I want to really bring everything full circle, and all of the things that I would have expressed that the different departments under the purview of the Ministries of Social Development, Gender Affairs, as well as Youth Empowerment, Aging, and Disabilities, all of the things that we're doing, the vision that we have, it's really the vision of this St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party-led administration to transform our federation towards a sustainable island state. That is, towards a position where we are self-sufficient, where we are resilient, where we are strong, and where we manifest who we are when we say that we small but we taller. And so to achieve this transformation, of course, and to realize this goal, again, remember that we are prioritizing social protection. And under that social protection is, as an important pillar for sustainability, we have these two ministries that are dedicated to ensuring that all demographics of our society come along with us and are not left behind. And so, as Minister with responsibility for social development, gender affairs, youth empowerment, aging, and disabilities, I am quite pleased with the support, and I'm very satisfied with the budget allotments that have been provided within these 2023 estimates. And so I am grateful to be part of this team that seeks to move forward to transforming our federation so that we can become that sustainable small island state, which is very doable. We have great potential here, we have great people, and so we are really committed to investing in those people and ensuring that they are protected. And so, Madam Speaker, it is a new day. And I trust that these estimates demonstrate the better way that we are going in. And with that, may it please you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you to the Honourable Senator Isalean Phillip. Honourable members, I wish to suspend the House for 5 minutes, briefly. 5.
Welcome, telling me I'm